Do you like watching trains do a variety of work, whether it's mainline hauling or switching? Hi, this is Burr Stewart, and for today's episode of Much Fun with Trains, we're showing a whole bunch of things. We've got that unit coal train I mentioned, we got some construction update on grade crossings, we have a little bit more of the narrow gauge operation, and we have a fairly detailed switching maneuver involving a beautiful switch engine, a couple of freight cars, and two different yards on the opposite sides of the Everett Peninsula. So let's get started. The first great thing that happened was that Brian brought over his BCR engines, and Brian Elchlip, as you know, brings a lot of engines over here, but the BCR engines are particularly fun because he is a longtime fan of the BCR and even published a book about it. So when he brings over BCR equipment, you know in some way it's a very realistic and detailed thing. In this case, he told me that both of these engines were weathered for specific days that he had photographs of them, and so they're very, very precisely weathered prototype models, or models of prototype, whatever you want to call it. The train, as you see, is coming through that very famous crossover right in downtown Seattle at Pier 66 and crossing Broad Street on its way into the Interbay Yard in Seattle. It's just north of downtown, and if you're ever in Seattle, be sure to try to find it. And there's a couple of bridge overpasses you can watch trains from, and it's just a good rail fanning spot, as it is here on this railroad. This, of course, is my HO scale Burlington Northern, and it's been running trains through the Interbay Yard and switching them for longer than the Burlington Northern itself existed as a railroad, because I started building this layout in a different house in the mid-1980s, and now I hate to tell you it's the mid-2020s, so that's a good 40 years. I can hardly believe it. So anyway, back to the subject. While we were running Brian's engines through Interbay, Scott was switching with a switcher onto the zero track. And I mentioned the zero track in my last video, and here he is setting out a group of cars on that track. With this relatively new, very old CB&Q SD-7. This engine, as I understand it, actually did do switching in the Interbay Yard in the early 70s, right after the merger, and you can see we have it re-lettered and numbered for the correct BN number. Very nice. I'd say that's my favorite engine, except I think I say that every time we do a video about something, so I'm not going to say it this time. And someone pointed out online that the Beacon's truck has smashed into the bus. We'll have to do something about that soon. Okay, so now our BCR train is coming across the Ballard Bridge. Past the Ballard Station, along the Golden Gardens bulkhead. The road in the foreground is Seaview Avenue Northwest, which you also saw in my previous video, and I thought we'd give you a roll-by of this train. I think he pulled it from the Argo Yard, so it's pretty much a Milwaukee train, but that's okay for BCR. They took trains up north to Canada from Seattle, interchange up in Sumas area. I hope you don't get tired of this particular view of trains. I really enjoy it. So in the last video, we mentioned that we sometimes run a unit coal train. So here it is.
Bayside, picking up some cars.
It's coming north, having crossed the Columbia River from the coal mines in Montana and Wyoming. And it's going through that same section of track that we saw the BCR engines use the crossover. This train is staying on the main line. It's going right through Interbay. Of course, that's downtown Seattle on the left and Mount Rainier on the right. And that's how long our unit coal train is. I haven't counted the cars, but it's in the 20s. And you can see, again, with the early 70s theme, some of these are legacy Great Northern and Burlington cars, although most of them have been painted with the new BN logo. And you see Scott is still fussing around with some switching. And there it is. He's moving that switcher over onto another track. I always say 2 moving trains is better than 1, as good as 1 is. Get ready for it. Bang! Well, a few minutes later, the coal train is moved all the way up to Burlington, up north, that is. Actually, it's also up in elevation on this layout because this is a shelf up above the Seattle area on the model railroad. And this bridge and scenery were created by Paul Scoles for his book about making realistic model railroad scenery. And you also may recognize that this is the spot where we put the prairie dog town a few months ago. Now, somebody was fooling around with me and positioned those cows so they're walking across the water. I don't approve of that, but these things happen when I'm not watching. Too busy taking videos all the time. That bridge also looks like it's about to collapse. We better... we got to stop making videos and start maintaining the layout. So, meanwhile, Brian has come back down from Skykomish with his gorgeous engine so that he could run that all-weather cab unit on the front with those stripes. And we got to see those cars one more time in that Milwaukee cut. But I couldn't resist going over and just staring at some of these engines. These, again, are early BN engines over in the engine facility. And, of course, to the right is the car repair facility. And there's Brian taking real photos of his own. So while all this action was happening, Dave was down in West Seattle helping me advance the scenic treatment there. And if you watch these videos routinely, you'll see him gradually improve that to the point where it looks like a finished model railroad. Now, up in the narrow gauge world, we're still recovering from the glory and bliss of these 2 shovel-nosed diesels from the White Pass and Yukon, which Brian Alschlip also remotored and well, he didn't remotor them. He just put decoders and tuned them up considerably and put in headlights and details. It's really fantastic how he works over a couple of engines like this. What I wanted to show you today was the sound of the dynamic brake, since this is a downhill move that we're doing. What a great sound.
I don't know if they did something like
That rock outcropping was done by Eric Van Nice, and you recognize that name because I just recently published a video about his 1895 era Western theme model railroad. And he's come over here a few times and practiced his plaster mold rock art, and you can see he did a beautiful job on this outcropping.
That's the second. Yeah, so that's. Now that, in this case, it's actually breaking. It's slowing. Yeah, yeah, our, that's all.
Very nice.
You know, it's still whining. It's set up. No, that's.
Well, undeterred by all this other action, Scott went over to Delta Yard and discovered that there were a couple of cars there that needed to be transferred back to Bayside Yard, which is on the opposite side of the Everett Peninsula. So he just decided to push them instead of to pull them. In your mind, you have to imagine there's a brakeman riding on the right-hand side of that yellow boxcar with some sort of a flag or radio or something, keeping an eye out on the front end of the train while the engineer is controlling it from the rear. Looks like there's another brakeman on the rear of the rear, as it were. Notice the headlights are on. That's because we set all of our engines up to not have directional headlights. The headlights stay on if you turn them on. And that's the way a real locomotive is. So that's why I do it that way. So a couple seconds later, the train emerges from the tunnel into the Everett Bayside Yard. You'll notice in the back there are the 4 Milwaukee donkeys that we featured in the previous video. Part 155. I'll put a link to that in the description below. And check out the description below for a lot of other links too, to videos that we've published that are related to this. Even that strange looking tiger to the left of the Milwaukee switchers was featured in one of our videos because it created a derailment. So as you see, Scott dropped those 2 boxcars in the yard, and now he is coming back to the main to put his switcher away in the engine terminal at Bayside. And there we have one last look at our Milwaukee donkeys. And the train that they pulled over in part 155. And the switch engine is barreling along because he can't wait to go off duty. Scott gets all kinds of extra points for blowing for that grade crossing, doesn't he? Well, that was today's excitement on the Burlington Northern. I hope you enjoyed it, and look at the rest of my channel. And for now, this is Burr Stewart, wishing you much fun with trains. Look at this. Coal train, switch engine, express boxcar, Milwaukee Road car barge to Port Townsend, you name it.